Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Man, we were just talking off microphone. The 4 games just escalated in terms of fun, drama, storylines. Like this morning, I watched like an hour and a half of mostly the ESPN national shows just to get a feel for what are they talking about. It was just like an hour and a half of people yelling at each other about Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Was it Josh Allen? He can't win the big one, Josh Allen this. Man, that was fun this weekend.
I think we got on this exact show last year on the Monday after divisional round and said the exact same thing. But it's just unbelievably fun to watch. And it feels like Super Wild Card Weekend is all about excess, right? It's not necessarily the games are great, but it's excess football. Like it's just plate after plate. It's a buffet. It's a buffet. It might not be that good, but you've got so much food. The divisional round, though, it's like going to a highbrow restaurant.
Yeah, it's a little more high end. Yeah,
it's high end.
The menu's a little more select, you know?
Yep. Well, and you probably got to dress up nicer. Like Super Wild Card Weekend.
You can't wear a hat. Yeah.
Sweats.
No backwards
sweats. Hats. Hoodie, right? Like you're just eating and your sweats are stretching. But Saturday and Sunday, Saturday and Sunday, you got to be a little bit more like, okay, and you're dressed nicely, but my God, was that fun.
Little collared shirt while you're watching the Lions. And the Buccaneers.
I have a hatchet. I just have a hatchet that I'm sharpening while I watch Dan Campbell and Lions football. Just sharpening knives.
Did you see him get emotional in the post-game
locker
room?
Of course.
Dude, that guy, it is funny. I mean, and we were leading the charge in Vikingsville here a few years ago. And this might just be a segue. What we're going to do, we're going to give you 2 episodes today. This one's going to be all about the things the Vikings should have learned during divisional round week. We did this for Wild Card Weekend. What should they have learned during divisional round weekend? But we made fun of that guy 3 years ago because he comes in here, he's got he looks like the most football meathead of all time. And he's talking about biting kneecaps but man, he's in that locker room. He's breaking down emotionally as he tells that team, like, we've made it here. We got 2 more games to go.
Yep.
And the Vikings are just, like always, just sitting around trying to figure out should we run it back? Should we, So Judd, why don't you start us off with? We'll go around the room here. What are some things, if the Vikings were taking notes on their little notepad, watching those 4 games with an open mind, things the Vikings should have learned from divisional round weekend, presented by Quick Trip, Judd?
Oh, yeah. Before I talk about quarterback play or kickers, you know what? I want to talk about my friends at Quick Trip because it's a Monday and you're going to be driving home and you're going to go past a Quick Trip and you need gas. It's getting to E, so you're like, I got to fill up. But you know what? You have hit upon the perfect place because Quick Trip, not only can you fill up, not only can you go in and get the Karuba coffee, but Quick Trip is so much more than just a small convenience store. In fact, let's talk about the ability here for new lower prices on all take-home meals every day. That's right. You stop to get gas, but it's getting late and you're like, oh, I'm supposed to pick up dinner. Well, guess what? Have I got choices for you because mealtime just got much, much simpler, freshly prepared in the Quick Trip kitchens every day. Chicken, bacon, mac and cheese, fettuccine Alfredo with grilled chicken, meatloaf with mashed potatoes and gravy. You talk about football. You talk about Thanksgiving, spaghetti and meatballs. I could go on, but the fact is Quick Trip is going to take care of you. So you know what? Get in there and get that Quick Trip.
All right, things the Vikings should have learned from divisional round weekend. Judd, start us off.
That this is, when it comes to quarterback play, a young man's game. Let me run through the ages of the starting quarterbacks in the 4 games that we saw in the past 2 days. CJ Stroud, 22. Lamar Jackson, 27. Jordan Love, 25. Brock Purdy, 24. Baker Mayfield, well, he's been around forever. He's got to be 32. No, he's 28.
Pretty good playoff quarterback, by the way.
Yeah, Baker. And he's going to get paid. And I don't know that I would pay him, but you go down this list. Well, Jared Goff, he's old. He doesn't turn 30 until next October.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, been around forever, right? He's 28 years old. Josh Allen, unbelievably athletic. Yes, they run into the Chiefs, but I still like Josh a lot, and he is 27. So what I think you learn is, as you contemplate, what should we do? What direction should we go? Should we re-sign a guy who's going to turn 36 in August? Or should we look at trying to hit a reset and actually get in on the young surge, this 20-something surge? That's what I think the Vikings should learn, is this has to be part of your decision on Kirk Cousins.
Well, also, I think you laying out those ages is really interesting because it does feel like it feels like we're 10 years into the Mahomes dynasty and the Mahomes Josh Allen, but we're not. We're like 5 years into it. I think this is Mahomes' 6th year in the league. And by the way, the Chiefs have been to the AFC Championship game or further in all 6 years. Just insane. And that was their first road playoff game. But I still hear arguments, when we point out, hey, not that it's all his fault, but like Kirk Cousins is 36 years old and he's been a starting quarterback for a decade, and his teams have one playoff win and his teams have no trips to the conference championship game. And immediately people strike back with, what about Lamar Jackson? What about Justin Herbert, who isn't even in the playoffs? He's not even in the group that you just mentioned, right? And I said, well, okay. Well, those guys are like a decade younger than the quarterback that we're talking about. And Lamar Jackson did just get his second playoff win. So, right? I think that was his second. Did he have one a couple years ago?
He had one. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So it's like, as you look, and again, this year is one of the strongest on paper quarterback drafts too. So you're going to have another influx of dudes who are 22, 24 years old. You look around the league, and do you not want to at some point jump back into that pool and see? I know it's a scary pool. It's so scary. You might wind up with a bust or a Christian Ponder or somebody, but isn't it fun too? I mean, think about the fan bases for some of these teams. Even if you're a Bills fan, yes, it's torturous what's happening here. And no, comparing Josh Allen to Kirk Cousins is also not fair. Neither one of them can win the big game. Well, the difference is one guy is like getting to the game against the Chiefs all the time and losing that. He's like it's like a video game. There's 12 levels. And Josh Allen keeps getting to like the 10th level, the 11th level, and then boom, Bowser comes out of a pipe or something.
Yes.
And Kirk Cousins barely even gets to level 4, and people are like, well, neither one of them gets to the final level. It's like, well,
right.
Little bit of a difference there, I think.
Well, and last year you lost to the Giants. Like what we saw yesterday was not exactly the Vikings Giants. Those were 4 heavyweight fights. Like they are heavyweight bouts. Like if you go down swinging like that, my opinion changes. Okay. The only time in the Cousins regime that he has gotten to that type of game was 2019 after they beat the Saints, which was impressive. They went to San Francisco, and that was a heavyweight bout. The 49ers said, we're going to kick your ass. And the Vikings said, oh, okay, cool, bye.
Okay, sounds good.
So that's what I want. Like this to me is much tougher to take, but it's also because you felt, if you're Buffalo, you always feel like you're close. It's like the Jazz against the Bulls. Like those Jazz teams were good. They just ran into the Bulls. The Vikings are running into themselves.
And actually, you know what? It actually is kind of too like, it's the John Elway Broncos for the fans that were old enough to remember.
Yep, you're right.
The late 80s, early 90s Broncos, and they were getting to the AFC title game. They were getting to Super Bowls. They kept running into the 49ers in the Super Bowl. They ran into a Washington team at one point, but like the Joe Gibbs teams. And then they were running into, on the AFC side, the Buffalo Bills in the early 90s. And finally, toward the end of the 90s, they broke through it, but it took like 15 years. Another thing here too, here's my number one thing the Vikings should learn here as they're going about their roster building discussions right now. I think the biggest question for the Vikings and among fans that we debate either directly or indirectly is how far away are they? As you watch the divisional round games, you could twist yourself into a pretzel and say, wow, I mean, Vikings beat the Packers a few months ago. They beat the 49ers on Monday Night Football. They went toe-to-toe with the Lions, and boy, they're right there. And so I set out this morning to try and quantify how far away are the Vikings. It's not like college football where there's a Grand Canyon gap between the Alabamas and the Michigans and the Gophers. I mean, the NFL is designed to get the worst teams the best talent in the draft too. So you're never like as far away as a college team could be. But I think I quantified this. So in reality, you need to outscore opponents in the regular season by 75 or more points to be an actual contender. If you look at the 57 years of Super Bowl era. And so my biggest thing for the Vikings to write down is point differential matters. Don't trick yourself into thinking hey, we're in all these close games. This is great. We beat the Packers over here. We played the Lions close over there. We're in every game. If we can just have the ball bounce a different way, or if we can just turn that one play around, we can trick ourselves into thinking that maybe we're better than we really are. 57 Super Bowls. Only 6 teams failed to outscore their opponents by at least 75 points point differential in the regular season. Those outliers are the 2015 Broncos, that also had one of the best defenses of the last 20 years. And Peyton Manning kind of came alive when he had to at the end, right?
The wobbler.
Yeah, he was throwing end-over-end ducks 15 yards down the field. But, he brought like the Peyton Manning moxie to the table. The 2012 Ravens outlier, both those Giants teams were outliers. The 82 Washington Redskins and the 1980 Raiders. Those are the only 6 teams in Super Bowl history that didn't outscore their regular season opponents by at least 75 points. So keep that number in mind, okay? The Vikings in their history, here are the seasons in which they have outscored opponents in the regular season by 75 points or more. 2019 was the last time. So the Vikings have actually been outscored in 4 straight seasons. 2019, they were like a plus 100, plus 103 or something. And they got smoked in the second round. 2017, NFC Championship game. 2009, 1998. Then you got to go back to 1992. There was 3 different times in the 80s, 89, 88, 86. And then almost every year in the 70s, they were at least a plus 75, sometimes a plus 200. So think about that. Plus 75 is a great bar. Now, it doesn't guarantee because you're a plus 75, you are going to win the Super Bowl, obviously. But plus 75 is kind of, if you think you're an actual contender, you better be a plus 75 or you're an outlier. Only 3 times since 1998 and only 4 times since 1992 have the Vikings hit that bar. So, and again, we sit here and we're like, boy, like if a couple of games would have gone differently here and there, okay, that's cool. That might have gotten you to 9 wins and in the playoffs, but you're not an actual contender unless you're creating some separation in the regular season. The teams remaining, the Ravens are a plus 203. The Niners are a plus 193. The Chiefs are a plus 77, but they also have Patrick Mahomes. So those 3 teams are over the plus 75. The Lions are a plus 66, so they're a little light. Probably shows you that they've gone as far as they're probably going to get beat by the Niners and try again next year. So the Vikings are not as close as people tend to debate and think when you look at the plus 75 mark as a true contender watermark.
And we also talked about this last year, the Monday after the divisional games, but I think it's worth broaching too, is you watch those games on Saturday and Sunday and said, okay, let's imagine the Vikings there. Okay. Like, do they have the attributes? And as we discussed last week, January football is a different animal completely. Like what you did in Lambeau Field on October 29th or so is not relevant to what you're doing now. The game changes. And when you see, I mean, a perfect example is the Packers. Okay. Aaron Jones had a huge game. Green Bay blocked for him. Jordan Love has a Favre-like arm, which he can use for the good or the bad of his team. But like, how many games did you watch on Saturday or Sunday, you guys, where you said, if I put the Vikings in this game, are they tough enough? Do they have the attributes that you need in January to win? And by the way, on the road, let's say too. So like, you're going to go to San Francisco. How much better off, if at all, or are you worse than 2019 when you put yourself in that very predicament and got your ass kicked? You didn't keep it close.
Yeah.
And I still go back to, and Phil, I think you broached this at the end of the season. I don't think the Vikings are near from a starting point tough enough.
No, they're soft.
Yeah, but I'm saying you can't be like, it's bad to be soft in November, December. It's really bad. It's completely fatal in January. You're going to get your ass handed to you.
Yeah, and part of, I think when you're soft, you're probably not, just to bring it back to like point differential too, if you're a soft team and you can't really run the ball, are you really going to create separation in these games? Are you going to control the ball, run it down someone's throat, get the extra touchdown, score the extra touchdown instead of a field goal in the red zone, right? And then you look at the Packers, and the Packers, granted, it helps to have Brett Favre into Aaron Rodgers, but the Packers have also had some great defenses over the years. They've had great coaches over the years. Their organization, as much as it sucks to say this from a Viking standpoint, Their organization is largely really well run over the last like 30 years or so. And if plus 75 is that barrier, how many times as you're building rosters can you build a 53-man roster and schemes and coaches, everything that creates that separation to give yourself an actual shot? This is like getting in and praying that anything can happen. That's unrealistic. Building a team that can be a plus 75 point differential and getting in, now you're talking.
Right.
Last 30 years, the Vikings have done it 4 times again. 4 times in 30 years have they had a plus 75 point differential. The Packers over that stretch, 14 different times. Mm-hmm. And that's why the Packers are winning a couple Super Bowls in that time period. They probably should have more than 2 Super Bowls. That's why they're getting in some of these years where you think they're going to take a step back or somebody gets hurt, like they're still fighting and getting into the playoffs. So just point differential matters, man. Just get in and play close games. No, you need to be definitively beating teams in the regular season and show that you have actual championship process. All right, Dex, give us something.
All right, so I wasn't able to join you guys last week after Super Wildcard Weekend, and this take is from that, and it still obviously applies after watching the Divisional Weekend as well, but my take is if you can hit on a draft class and you have an immediate impact, man, you can go pretty dang far. Would the Lions be where they are right now without the draft class they just had from Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam? They gave away Hawkinson and said we have a better rookie that we're going to draft in Sam Laporta. Last year, obviously, they get the year before that, they get Aiden Hutchinson, who's one of the best defensive ends in football. This is a product of drafting incredibly well and what it can do for you. I mean, look at that. The Lions, right, when they drafted Hutchinson, were awful. They were still kind of coming out of the Dan Campbell era. And now all of a sudden they hit on 2 big draft classes, and the Detroit Lions, I repeat, the Detroit Lions are a win away from going to a Super Bowl. And I don't think it's completely, they're going to be underdogs in San Francisco, but it's not completely unfathomable to think that they could be this time next week. Yeah. We are talking about the Detroit Lions in a Super Bowl, which is crazy. And a lot of that has to do with how well they have drafted. And I know the first draft for Kwesi was really rough. The second draft, there were some highlights. But, man, if the Vikings hit on a 2024 draft class that brings immediate impact, that can help you supplement some of the losses and kind of put you back up top near the NFC North. I know it's a kind of a pipe dream, but if you hit on a draft class right away, man, it makes life a hell of a lot more easier.
Yeah, you listed one. Brian Branch is another one. He was the 45th overall pick. They had, in the 2023 draft alone, so this doesn't even count, like Aiden Hutchinson from a couple years ago. The Lions have 4 guys in the first 45 picks that are huge contributors to this team that's knocking on the door. Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch. And so all eyes kind of turn back to Kwesi these last couple drafts. And they have, like, Jordan Addison was a hit. Ivan Pace Jr. was not a draft pick, but he was a hit. I think Mekhi Blackmon is going to be. So it's not like he's whiffed on all of it, but that draft from 2 years ago, especially when you compare the whiffs, the top 3 picks, you got Brian Asamoah played like 10 defensive snaps this year, compared to what the Lions have done in the draft the last couple of years. And even the Chiefs, when they won the Super Bowl last, didn't they have like 7 contributing rookies on that Super Bowl winning team?
Pacheco was like a 6th-round pick from Rutgers.
Right.
So, Yes, absolutely. And this draft becomes even more important, too, because the fact that you didn't make the playoffs puts you in every round that you have your own picks retained a better position as well, right? So like you could potentially go up, but if you don't, you've got a pretty good 1st-round pick. You got a pretty good 2nd-round pick. So yeah, I think that I think we give too many passes on, well, let's wait for year 3 of Booth sometimes, right? Like let's wait for year 3 of Asamoah. We'll see it in year 3. Or the team says, well, Ty Chandler's not prepared to play yet, so we cannot hold on a second here. There are teams that plug guys in immediately. And if you don't feel that you can, eventually that comes back on you. Like, what are you doing development-wise and scouting-wise? So, yeah, there is no question that this team, this draft, and I know it can be a crapshoot, but this draft needs to be plentiful. Like, this is a draft in which you can immediately go get help in like the first 2 to 3 rounds, I think. And there's no rule, as we've seen, that says that you can't hit on a 5th or 6th round pick.
You know what else is interesting? The 2020 Lions, so it was 3 years ago. Matthew Stafford was their quarterback, obviously. And, he had a classic Stafford season, 4,000 yards. He had 26 touchdowns. He had 4 game-winning drives. Passer rating of just below 100. Top 10 QBR in the league. Just a good Matthew Stafford season. His number 2 receiver on that team was T.J. Hawkinson, a young T.J. Hawkinson.
Yeah.
So a couple interesting people. Matthew Stafford in his prime and T.J. Hawkinson. And they decided within the next 18 months, this isn't like building around these guys and paying these guys a lot of money over the next few years. We need more pieces. This isn't enough. So they traded Matthew Stafford for a haul, and then they traded T.J. Hawkinson for a second-round pick. And then they nailed the next 2 draft classes, swapped out the coach. They brought in Dan Campbell. And they were probably in it. They were like a 5-win team in 2020. So I get it. When you're the Lions and you're a 5-win team, it's easier just to hit the reset button for the 20th time and say whatever. But it took cojones to trade Matthew Stafford, who's one of the Mount Rushmore figures in that franchise's history, and T.J. Hawkinson as one of the top 5 pass-catching tight ends in the league. But like Deck said, okay, we'll just go get Sam Laporta over here. Oh, Jared Goff. Yeah, you're good enough for us. We can make that work with Jared Goff, and then use the other pieces to make your car better, make your roster better. And here they are.
Absolutely.
Judd, what's your next?
All right, my next statement off the divisional round unbelievable playoff weekend is this. I know that misery loves company, so Buffalo and Green Bay, we are in solidarity with you today, because my statement is, at the end of the day, get yourself a kicker that you can trust. And I don't mean a kicker who's got a big leg, and I don't mean a kicker who pops up once in a while and makes that big kick and we carry him off the field and it's Charlie Brown. I'm talking about a kicker that you can trust. Tyler Bass, 44-yard miss with KC up 3. So with 1:43 left, instead of it being a tie score. And, again, you battle this team every year, and it comes down to a kicker. And I know it's Buffalo. I know it's tough, but misses a field goal attempt. And now you've lost the game. Carlson, 6:18 left. Field goal attempt in San Fran. Again, I know it's difficult. I know it's not great, but 41 yards out. You should make that. You make that, you're up by 7. San Francisco scores. Odds are you're going to OT. You're still going to have a chance. Instead, you miss that, and now you are up by 4 if you're the Packers. The Niners come back and win it, and of course, Anders Carlson is the brother of none other than Daniel Carlson, who lost his job
kicking legacy,
with the Vikings in Green Bay. And I looked it up. So Bass and Carlson were 23rd and 24th in field goal percentage during the season at 82.8%, and in the case of Carlson, 81.8%. So consistency was a problem, and consistency bit them in the ass on Saturday and Sunday. Greg Joseph, 80% behind both of those guys on field goal attempts, 24 of 30. Do not take this lightly. Do not think, well, this guy's got a leg. We like him. This is no place for development. This is a place for people that you have complete faith in. And I think it's very fair to say, when it came to Bass and Carlson might be great. I don't know. Certainly he's going to stick there. But today, you're really ruining the fact that he couldn't make a 41-yard field goal.
I think, you say, I can't remember the way you just phrased it, but like that this is when you get to this round, this is no time to be developing, right?
Right.
But I think, in defense of the Packers for a second, I don't think they ever expected to be in the divisional round of the 2023 season playoffs. So they came in, we're going to develop a quarterback here. We're going to just let's just treat this year as a move it forward however we can year, and we'll see if this rookie kicker, and then all of a sudden they go on this run at the end of the year. It's like, oh my God, this is crazy. On the Bills front, man, that is a brutal miss. And Patrick Mahomes probably gets the ball back and marches down, and they kick a game-winning field goal anyways. But yeah, Tyler Bass, he's just, for the Vikings, historically, it's wide left. It's Gary Anderson wide left and Blair Walsh wide left.
Right,
and the Bills are wide right. Scott Norwood. At one point on Twitter yesterday, after that game was over, the top 3 trending topics in the sports world were wide right, Scott Norwood, and Tyler Bass. All the top 3. Yeah. Just brutal, man.
Can I just jump in now with my second one? Because mine also had a kicking thing.
Yes.
So I kind of take the Larry David approach here. I don't know if you've ever seen Larry David's epic rant about kickers with Rich Eisen. Like, I think this was maybe a couple years ago during Super Bowl week, or maybe it was last year. It really is the most silliest position in all of sports. It's one guy on a team who has one job, that is to kick a field goal through an upright that no one else has to do. No one else is doing this. One guy, his job is to kick upright through a goalpost. Why are we doing that? And we talk about, Judge says development. Okay, how do we develop these guys? Well, you don't draft them. You grab them out of college, you compete them against one another, and maybe you rely on them for 4 months. But if they miss one kick, all of a sudden, what do we do? How do we develop these? What do we do here? I hate to be this guy. Get rid of kicking in the NFL. I hate it. This is so stupid. We don't know how to develop them. We don't know. We should have never draft them. Asset management is also silly. The whole position to me is so GD bizarre, and we have no answer to fix it. We have no. There's two kickers in the NFL that are really good, and that's it.
So let's go down this path for a second. What would football look like? I mean, kickoffs are almost gone anyways, right? So that's easy. You just put the ball at the 25.
2-point conversions or bust.
So for touchdowns, it'd be 2-point conversions. But then for just, all right, you're marching down the field and it's 3rd and 16 and you're at the 19-yard line. You're in the red zone. 3rd and 16 from the 19-yard line.
Yeah.
And you throw an incomplete pass and now it's 4th and 16. I guess you'd go for it, right? Because then because you're not we would have no goalposts. You would go for it.
Yeah.
And then if you don't get it, the other team just gets the ball, right? And then you'd have to make decisions at like the 40 and 30. You would just go for it more often. That would be more fun.
Totally.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? So instead of lining up for a field goal, like Josh Allen just like takes another snap and I can't remember what it was. I think it was like 4th and 10 or something. I'm with Dex, man. I don't need kicking. It's just unnecessary anxiety.
It was a great rant, by the way. Larry David's rant is fantastic. It's hilarious.
It is. You guys should check it out on YouTube. But Tyler Bass now has to live with that the rest of his life, just like Scott Norwood and Blair Walsh. And they have to wake up every day staring at themselves in the mirror and thinking about that moment. We can take away all that anxiety from kickers, right?
There's something to be said, though, for a little guy who comes in and kicks a ball. His name lives in infamy for a team's franchise for the rest of existence. I mean, Gary Anderson was perfect that season until that kick. And that name still, brings back some of the most brutal memories for Vikings fans. You're right about Blair Walsh. Now, that was what, a first-round game, so not nearly as brutal as a championship game, but like it is incredible that these names are etched in our brains forever, and they are some of the people that we actually see the least, and they really don't play football.
Up until recently, baseball decided the pitcher was going to come up and hit, even though he can't hit. He's an automatic out. He's a 99.9% out. And then they realize, hey, you know what? You know what would be great if these guys don't hit the baseball because they can't hit the baseball. It changes the whole strategy of how you go about things. The double switch. Get me out of here with that BS.
Oh, those
decided,
are fighting words for Judd.
Oh,
Judd
I know they are. It's just it's the silliest thing. It's the silliest of all things. What if in hockey we just decided at center court we're just gonna have a guy take a shot, and if it goes in, it goes in. Like it's the dumbest thing.
We do the shootout.
No, but I'm saying from half court, from half center ice, you just basically, hey, let's take a shot here because we have to do this now. The whole thing to me is silly. But the difference, like in hockey,
either way, like you don't. Well, it is funny because hockey, you do have one guy that does one job. It's called the goalie. But it would be like if you had, okay, we just played a game of hockey, and now we're going to bring on a half rink specialist, and we're gonna take the goalie out of the net, and we're gonna. It's like those like contests they do between periods where if this random fan can slide this puck into this small little hole, he wins a semester of tuition. It's great.
But my grand point is I don't think the position is taken seriously.
Well, no, your grand point is Blair Walsh Freudian slip.
Tyler Bass
is that Greg Joseph probably shouldn't be the Vikings kicker next year. Isn't that your grand point?
Yeah. But I'm saying my grand point is as long as it's going to be here, as long as we have kicking, you need to have it can't be just, we'll keep Tyler Bass. I actually would draft one late and stick him on my practice squad. And I would have
none of these guys, to Declan's point. So your solution for unreliable kickers is to just go get another unreliable kicker and stash them on the roster? Declan's right, dude. Get rid of kicking.
Stupid.
Well, but they're not going to.
There is no solution. It's not like
no
there's
solution.
a Adam Vinatieri in his
Okay, what
prime
about
on his
Baltimore?
couch.
That's
Well,
one.
Baltimore has the greatest kicker of all time.
Exactly right.
And the rest of the league has terrible kickers.
That's not true.
31 teams
Nick Folk, you see, I
so there's
come
two.
prepped.
There's two.
Nick Folk, old
There's two
Nick Folk
kickers.
had the best percentage in the league. I'm trying to solve problems for the Vikings right now.
But hold on a second. This is like quarterbacks, but it's worse.
It is.
Because kickers, there's like let's be generous and say there's like 5 reliable kickers. I think Daniel Carlson's reliable now.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's say there's five or six guys that you're like, yep, that dude is going to be a kicker for 10 years in the league. With quarterbacks, it's like at any given time there's 15 to 20 that you feel pretty good about, and then the other third of the league is looking. So the solution, if you're a team looking for a quarterback, the solution isn't, well, just go find a quarterback, go to the quarterback tree, the quarterback springs, and
It's to keep taking chances.
Right, but there's always going to be half the league needing a quarterback and 2/3 of the league needing a kicker. Is what we're saying.
I understand.
Like the Buffalo Bills aren't going to find a kicker better than Tyler Bass.
You sure about that?
Yes.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
Yeah.
Why haven't the Vikings found a reliable kicker in your life since Gary Anderson missed?
Well, I don't think teams are.
Well.
Yeah. That's actually that's the greatest example possible. And you know what the Vikings' problem was ultimately? And this is where teams screw themselves up on kickers. I need a bigger leg. I need a bigger leg. I need the biggest leg. You need reliability, and then at times you need a big leg. But what you don't need to do is jettison a guy who shows consistency for the prospect of, well, you don't understand. This guy was hitting 62-yarders during his pro day.
I mean, Tyler Bass has made 85% of his field goals in his career and 98% of his extra points, which
he
is
was 20.
Those are like far better than Greg Joseph's numbers, just for context.
Yep.
And he's made 12 out of 19 50-plus yarders. He's only missed in his career like 5 kicks between 40 and 49. And he's probably one of the 10 best kickers in the league.
Actually, he was 23rd.
Right, man. Get rid of kick.
23rd.
No, I'm saying
season.
over like a 3-year sample. You
I'm
would
saying
take
this
Tyler
year.
Bass.
I'm saying this year. I'm saying
And
what happened
Justin-
on Sunday was not a surprise.
And Justin Tucker is like 1 for 5 from 50 this year, who's supposed to be the greatest kicker in the NFL. So what's going to happen?
Exactly
He's
why
gonna
the
miss a kick.
big leg thing is flawed. What I'm saying is give me the keys to the car and I will help solve this issue.
You are far too confident on the silliest position in all of sports that you can.
But it's not silly. But see that's the fatal flaw
silly.
of your
So
statement.
what should the Vikings do? Let's bring this to the Vikings. What should
It's
the
not silly.
Vikings have and if Declan wants to fight this like he always does, he
They
can.
have an unreliable kicker.
They have an unreliable kicker. Statistically, rankings, everything.
It's fine.
Yes.
What should the Vikings do?
I would go out and sign a veteran who has a better percentage. And then I would also, I think the practice squads are now 15 guys. I would have no problem with drafting one or signing a kid with a big leg and putting him on my practice squad, which they've done before. It's not unprecedented. And then while I have my kicking coach, which I don't think the Vikings do now, which I think is ridiculous. When I have my kicking coach working with this kid, if he shows potential, guess what I can do on game day? I can activate him if I want because he's on my practice squad.
And then how confident are you going to be? Okay, it's week 10, and the Vikings have a kicking problem, and they've cut Greg Joseph. And we're doing an episode of Purple Daily, and this kicker that the Vikings signed, he's like a journeyman kicker or a draft pick kicker from the practice squad. How confident are you that he's going 4 for 4 from?
Well, if I'm the kicking coach and I've seen him, I might be incredibly confident. But where you guys are missing,
how confident would you be? Is what my question is.
I just said I'd be very confident because I did this. But where you guys are missing the point about this entire thing is if Carlson and Bass had missed from like 58 yards, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's a lot to ask. They missed from 44 and 41 yards.
Kai Forbath hits that kick in his current.
Kai
I don't even know how old he
Forbath
is
did
anymore.
hit that kick against the Saints.
Yeah.
Don't forget, he saved the miracle game. Kai Forbath made the field goal that saved the Vikings' asses, or they lose that game.
I'm with Declan. You're outvoted. We're getting rid of kicking.
It's
in
the
National
silliest
Football
I'm
League.
fine with your point. I'm just saying I'm trying to solve an existing problem that the league is not going to agree with you.
I have a Mount Rushmore of mock draft for you guys here. But do you guys have any other things that the Vikings should have learned from divisional round weekend before we get there? We covered a lot of ground. We covered kicking. We covered point differential
for 20 minutes.
Yeah, is that kicking?
When did we start that kicking thing?
I think like 15 minutes ago.
It was like 15 minutes. Like 12
we spent
minutes.
a third of this episode on
15
kicking.
minutes?
Yeah.
Don't focus on it. Here's my last one. The last thing that the Vikings learned, I think, again, is that they every year, as long as Justin Jefferson is here, they should send Rick Spielman a thank you card for the Stephon Diggs trade.
Yeah, he dropped that pass too.
That pass he dropped. Now that's an incredibly difficult catch. I am not trying to say that the difficulty, but that's a catch he has to make. He finished that game with 8 targets and 4 touches and 3 catches for 21 yards. And as I tweeted on that deep ball, 18 catches it. Jefferson, without a question in my mind, hauls that ball in.
Agreed.
So, Rick Spielman, you deserve, your hand was forced. You appeared to be completely screwed by the player, and you turned that into gold.
Yeah, that was brutal. I think, hot take, the Bills can't just run this back. By the way, Rex Ryan was on Get Up this morning doing the Bill Belichick to Buffalo watch out thing, which would be amazing if the Bills decided. Yeah. He's saying, hey, I was fired because we couldn't get past the Patriots. And we had really good teams with the Jets, and we went to the AFC Championship game, and I got fired because we couldn't get over the hump. And it didn't work. But he goes, sometimes these owners think that the current coach can't get over the hump. But I think there's a chance that this could be the offseason where they move Stephon Diggs. Because if you're the Bills, you've got salary cap issues. You could use some young talent coming in. Your running game still isn't great. So I would say this might be the end for Stephon Diggs and the Bills finally, after like 2 years of grumblings.
If he catches that deep pass and let's say he catches 5 passes for 100 and something, then you know what? Him being a pain in the ass is worth it.
Yeah.
But 3 catches for 21 yards, 4 touches, and a key drop. Sorry, you're not worth it.
Yeah.
Josh Allen cap hit too in 2024. Did you see that? $47.1 million.
Yeah. Dak's like 55.
Yeah,
there's some aggressive cap hits.
What are the Cowboys doing too? They're literally going to run this back.
They are. Mike McCarthy's coming back. Man.
And Dak is like, if we talk about Kirk not being a great playoff QB necessarily across the board, what's Dak then?
Yeah, he also gets erratic and
gets really
inaccurate and nervous, and your pulse starts racing a little bit faster in those situations. So I know a way you can slow your heart rate down. A nice summer fishing getaway up at Ballard's Resort, right on the south shore of Lake of the Woods. You can breathe in that Canadian border air right on the doorstep of the Canadian border water. And Ballard's Resort, right on Lake of the Woods, is the walleye capital of the world. And you get access to U.S. Coast Guard licensed guides, too, that can help you maybe catch that 10-pound walleye that's floating around. So there's a reason we're talking about this in January, because these summer fishing dates book up fast at Ballard's Resort. So go to ballardsresort.com to book your dates, ballardsresort.com. Let's talk about Underdog here. Do they have kicking options on Underdog?
Yeah. They do.
Of course they do.
Of course they have kicking options. And it's the pick'em specials, man. They got some great pick'em specials with the NFC and AFC title games coming up. You can maybe sometimes even lock those picks in early, get a little spicy, and maybe lock in one of the extra boosts they'll give you to an Underdog Fantasy. We've seen a nice little influx of new score users on Underdog Fantasy, so appreciate you guys. If you haven't jumped in, you can use promo code SCORE, SKOR, and you'll also get a mystery pick'em special, too. And show us those slips. If you're a user on Underdog Fantasy, we love seeing those winning slips, love shouting them out here on Purple Daily. So go download the Underdog Fantasy app.
And also, hey, coming up in a couple of weeks here, so yeah, it's like 2.5 weeks away. The 2024 Minnesota Golf Show is February 9th through the 11th at Minneapolis Convention Center. You can get free lessons from a PGA teaching professional, try out the newest equipment for 2024, take your chance in sinking the $100,000 putt. And also, you can come and see us. We're going to be there on Saturday afternoon, sort of a Purple Daily and Mackie and Judd combination. We'll be out there for a couple hours. You can find the schedule at mngolfshow.com. Tickets for Score North listeners, if you want to come out and hang out with us and join in on the festivities, you can get $5 tickets all week long using the promo code SCORE. That's mngolfshow.com. $5 tickets with the promo code SCORE at mngolfshow.com. Okay, this is a good one here, right? I want to mock! This is Daniel Jeremiah.
Oh, I saw this one.
Oh, I saw this on Friday.
Okay.
Love this guy. Friend of the show, by the way.
He is a friend of the show. This is a Mount Rushmore of mockers, right? Now, are we taking Todd McShay out of the Mount Rushmore? It's Mel. It's Mel for sure.
Mount Rushmore's chiseled forever, so I don't know if we can or not.
Yeah, how would that work if we found out that
hey, just redo one of those.
Yeah, if we found out that old Abe was a little creepy,
little frisky, got a little frisky. HR complaints.
Can we cancel someone off of the Mount Rushmore? So I don't know. We'll figure out what to do with Todd McShay.
Don't suggest that. Could open a can of worms. We don't.
I'm sure it's been discussed. But Daniel Jeremiah is solidly in and not creepy as far as we know. Not McShay's not creepy either. I don't think he just got let go from ESPN.
Yeah.
Right? So okay. So anyways, this is the 1.0 from Daniel Jeremiah, NFL.com. He's got Caleb Williams going to the Bears, number 1. He's got Drake May going to the Commanders, number 2, and then Jaden Daniels going to the Patriots, 3. So there's your 3 quarterbacks off the board. Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Cardinals at 4. Rome Odunze, the Washington wide receiver, to the Chargers. They need to get younger weapons, and this would help. Giants take Malik Neighbors, the LSU wide receiver, 6th. Joe Alt, Minnesota's own, to the Titans, the offensive tackle. Falcons take, led by Bill Belichick, perhaps, although there is another candidate getting a second interview that we'll talk about on our bonus episode of Purple Daily. Dallas Turner going to the Falcons. He's the edge rusher from Bama. Jared Verse, edge from Florida State, goes to the Bears at 9. Talise Fuaga, the Oregon State offensive tackle, to the Jets. And that brings us to the Vikings at 11. This would make things confusing, I feel like, on the Vikings roster. They already have a Byron Murphy Jr., and here they would take the defensive tackle from Texas, Byron Murphy II.
Oh,
I want to mock! Yeah, Daniel Jeremiah says, I believe Murphy is the top defensive tackle in this class. Vikings need to add more firepower up front.
Yeah,
which is true.
The QB conversation is obviously the most fun to have and would create tons of content for folks like us. So I do love to talk about that possibility. But that being said, if you're going to get Hunter back, I think defensive tackle, and if you're going to get Daniil back and you're not going to go quarterback, I think defensive tackle is probably it.
And there's options, man. Jerzon Newton, there's a couple dudes, and we'll see how it all shakes out after like the combine. Where does he have Jerzon Newton then? Because he's like pretty consensus, like a top 12 pick in most.
Does he not like him as much?
Mocks.
I mean, that's a possibility.
28th to Buffalo.
Okay, so he doesn't like him that much.
Wow.
That's interesting. And the one thing too that we don't know, but I think would be an interesting thing to find out about is how much influence that they're going to allow Brian Flores to have here. Because I mean, he's coming back. Now, I know he has turned out not to be a hot commodity around the league. I think we all know some of the reasons why that is. But that being said, I would imagine that he's going to be going into somebody's office, right, and saying, hey, look what I did with what I had. Like, imagine if I had a defensive tackle. I don't blame him one bit. But I do think that there's a very compelling conversation to be had about a guy, coordinator-wise, who did a great job and probably has a leg to stand on to say, you know what, we really, really need to improve this thing, to sort of jump from a feel-good story to more of a, okay, this defense is just really damn good.
Yeah, and I think also quarterback is the most important long-term thing, obviously, but equally as important is continuing to build a great roster. And if you have, the top 3 most important positions listed, you got quarterback, edge rusher, I think interior defensive tackle, middle push, pass rusher push up the middle. That's right there in cornerback, you got your left tackle. So check, right?
Yes. Where does he have Michael Penix going?
I don't know. So he has
round 1.
Bo Nix is the next quarterback off the board, 14.
Ooh, okay.
He says, I'm a big fan of Nix's game. So Saints, he's got the Saints taking Bo Nix. I think his experience as a 5-year starter is a positive for him as he heads to the next level. He'd be a plug-and-play starter for New Orleans. I'm not confident the Saints view Derek Carr as the answer. Interesting. Yeah, he doesn't have any other first-round quarterbacks. So you'd have J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix in the second round if you wanted.
So is this a potential that the Vikings take their second round pick and something else and try to get back into the end of the first round?
Mm-hmm.
A Teddy type situation here?
Could
take
be.
that quarterback?
Get that fifth-year option?
I think you'd feel pretty good about yourself if you came out of it with a defensive tackle with the 11th pick and a quarterback that you liked with, let's say, the 31st or 32nd pick.
Yeah, with Ryan Tannehill as your bridge starter because Kirk Cousins signed a 3-year ironclad $150 million guaranteed deal.
He's gone Belichickian. He's gone Belichickian. He always wanted to play for him.
Oh, man. So, all right, that's a wrap on this episode. We have a bonus episode where we will start. We're going to have a few of these between now and free agency where we start to give you lists of free agents that might fit for the Vikings. So I have 5 of those for you on a bonus episode. It's Purple Daily, daily Vikings entertainment where we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die, like the Lions are about to.
Oh, boy.